Welcome to the Board of Education's February 18th, 2022 called meeting. Please stand as we observe a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Ms. Babb.
Please face the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
So a motion by Mr. Watson, a second by Ms. Horn. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Board members, to review the day's schedule, we will be meeting with Dr. Linda Cash in the mezzanine conference for breakfast and move back to this boardroom at 10:40 a.m. Dr. Cash will move through her presentation as we use the TSBA interview guide and the ratings on each of the criterion. And you have those copies at the table. I believe they're in this folder or under it. At 11 a.m., we will begin our interview of Dr. Cash with the questions provided by Human Resources Executive Director Scott Bolton. Following the interview, we will take a recess and reconvene in the mezzanine conference for lunch with Dr. Roswick at 12:40. We will move back to this boardroom for Dr. Roswick's presentation, again using the interview guide, followed by our interview of Dr. Roswick. Following that interview, we will adjourn for the day and meet back in this location on February 22nd at 5 p.m. to cast our ballots for a new superintendent. Are there any questions? Okay, so I guess we are moving for breakfast. Upstairs.
I like this a meal every meeting. That would be kinda
Especially we've been 4 or 5 hours.
I know.
Okay, so now we will turn this over to our Superintendent Search Committee Chair, Ms. Satterfield.
Thank you. Thank you, team, for being here. It's kind of like the fourth quarter of all that we've been doing, because it was a Super Bowl analogy that we started with, but, keeping in lines with that. But no, thank you for the process here. I just want to kind of give an overview of what is expected in the actual interview part of Dr. Cash, or of all of our candidates. And if you have any questions before we get started, let's get them all out, because once we start, we want to make sure that we keep that consistency for the other candidate as well. And so on your tables in front of you, you have the Knox County Superintendent Interview Guide, and it's the thick packet. Ideally, this is where the presentation that Dr. Cash the candidates are going to provide. They should walk us through these different criteria. They have already seen this information, and so they are familiar with this interview guide. I would like for you all to use the numbers and the criteria that's on here so that we can have a total ranking at the end. And so that at the end of the guide, we will be able to see actual numbers and use that as an assessment for how we move forward with everything. And then any questions about that part? So yes, please use the interview guide as they go through the presentation.
Yes, so I guess my question, is this getting turned in?
I
Or is this
believe-
for my own personal use? That's
think-
my question.
Yeah, I think it could be possibly for your own personal use, but also for a guide on the 22nd for us to have a conversation about where do we score.
I guess more I'm just asking about notes I would take on it and stuff like that. If it's
It's
going to be
yours.
going for public consumption, I would be different
Well,
about my notes
yeah.
versus if it's for my own personal.
Gary, would you like to weigh in on that?
No, that's a good question. If it's your personal notes that you're just using for yourself, then you can keep it private. Then obviously, like you said, you could talk about it on the 22nd and whatnot. I mean, if you wanted it to be public, you could certainly make it public. But it doesn't have to be if you'd rather have it just as personal notes.
Yeah, so the document that we have here for your guide, and we will discuss the actual numbers on the 22nd, if everyone's comfortable with that.
Okay, but this is for my own
That's
personal
yours.
use.
It's
Okay,
not coming to
I
me.
just wanted to be clear on that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions about that process? Again, this is about the process that the candidate is going to present to us, and then we'll use this as a guide. After that, we have a series of questions that our HR director developed, and that is in your folder as well. I would like the candidate to know that please share as much information as you can when you have the opportunity to answer the question, because we will not have follow-up questions. And so, board, please keep in line with that to no follow-up questions, just to make sure that the interview process is consistent for both of our candidates. So feel free to share as much that we need. And everyone has a question. There's a total of 11 questions that we will each individually ask. Any questions about that? And your chair and vice chair have two, because we're leadership. There's 11 questions. Okay, any other questions? All right, we ready? All right, Dr. Cash, I'm handing it over to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you. So as we begin just to talk about the value and importance of leading school systems and school districts, I thought you really needed to know a lot about who I am and what my beliefs and standards are. So first off, I love the profession. It is the most amazing situation to be in, because you have so much influence over students and student outcomes and building those relationships. I am passionate about public work. When I talk to people, whether it is in Nashville or whether it's local or whether it's on a bigger scale, I talk about the value and importance of public education and that we need the backing of everybody for public education. It disturbs me to think that people think that we don't want to do the things that are necessary to make our students healthy and safe and productive. One of my beliefs is that they often miss the fact that we serve all students. We don't pick and choose who we serve. We serve all students to the best of our abilities and what we can do. And sometimes we have to think outside of the box because we want to provide all opportunities and all access to the level that we can. I believe in vision and having a shared vision of excellence. Mediocrity is not okay. And when you find that you're moving into that stagnant phase or that mediocrity, then you need to go back and say, okay, what have we done to address the situation? Because you get this powerful movement and then you'll find it stalls. When you find that stall, as a leader, you go back to your vision. What parts of our vision have we met? Where do we need to cast the vision now? What strategic plans do we have in place to push? And anyone that I've ever worked for will tell you that it's a push. We are always on go. It's what do we do next? How do we fix this? But don't overload everybody. And I will tell you that I always put people in place that will push back on me, because sometimes I see the end and I forget that there's work on the ground that has to be completed so that teachers feel comfortable with it, building leaders feel comfortable with it, and the questions that they have. Your team is the most important thing you can have. The team that you surround yourself with is a team that's going to do the work and execute. So in a leadership level, you have a core team, and it's any business, any leadership. You've got a core team of people that you cast the vision to. Then that core team, they go out and cast the vision bigger, and then it runs. But you don't have one individual like me having to lead all of this at the boots on the ground. But what you do have are leadership positions that can carry out the mission as well as you do. My job is to be sure that the vision is transparent to everybody, to communities, to churches, anyone that we intervene with. They need to know what the vision is so that you can talk about it. I am a lifelong learner. I talk about education probably more than most people want to hear about. But when you're casting that vision, that's the excitement. That's when you go, you need to know what we're doing. You need to understand we need your help. So when that excitement takes place, I remember when we first started, one of the initiatives that we work with now is Partners in Industry and Education. We had been into it a year. I'd been working a year to try to get the vision out there. And I had the sweetest lady in church a year later tapped me on the back and said, I like your idea about the Pie Center. And I thought, well, we've made it. We now have them in church talking about it. I think decisions have to be based always on what's in the best interest of the student that sits in the classroom. If it's not in the best interest of the student, we need to back up and find out how we need to maneuver that road so that we're meeting their needs. And it's not just the academic needs. We get a lot of times caught up, and the general public gets caught up in what is the score, what is this. We want our kids to excel. But we also have to look at their social, emotional pieces, their after-school activities. Are we providing that whole? Are we giving them opportunities to excel in all areas? Because a strength of one student might be athletics, the strength of another student might be debate, or you could have them cross over. But we want to be sure that the focus is on the students and the teachers, to give the teachers those tools they need to be innovative and creative, and also teaching our kids. So I am relationship driven. I believe the relationships you build help everything move. If you are not building relationships and you're trying to do it all on your own, you will fail, because no one person can carry out everything. So those relationships with community members, teachers, principals, family members, grandmother, grandfather, those relationships are the most valuable thing that you can have. It's your county commission, it's your city board, it's all of those leaders that have to be involved. You wanted me to talk about my experiences. I have taught at the elementary, middle, and high school. What I learned from all of those is the student in each one of those, they're all students. We sometimes forget that elementary students have certain characteristics that we're molding, and then they hit middle school, they struggle a little with identity, and then you hit high school and we want to treat them as adults, and they're not. I always tell me, if you've got high schoolers and you compare a high schooler to an elementary fifth grader, a lot of the same characteristics are there. They're still wondering, they're still searching, and any adult who can connect with a student, whether it's elementary, middle, or high, they're going to have an impact on that student's life. Teaching in the classroom is a valuable skill. It is an art. Teaching in middle school, it's still the same thing. It's valuable. In the middle school, it is more about, does the teacher really have a relationship with those students, because they are trying to find their identity. In the high schools, they want to talk to you on more of adult level, but they also want you to understand that they have some struggles with moving forward. And I can tell you, as a high school teacher, one of the most impactful voices that I heard was a young man, and I was teaching biology, and he said, you know, I've never had anybody pour into me, and I've never finished a project until you came along. I mean, that's a win. And that was just me following that kid everywhere you didn't turn this in, you didn't turn this in, I need this, come back to me. Do you want to come in the morning? Do you want to come in the afternoon? So when you talk about what wide range of experiences, I think that experience in the classroom made me a better leader. By far, it made me a leader who understood the person is of the most value who sits in front of you. So casting that vision, focusing on children, supporting your teachers and training your teachers and your administrators, I think those are key about me. I'm passionate about that and feel if we do that well, everything else will move into place. So one of the things that you wanted to talk about is the open door policy. Do we listen? Are we available? I will tell you that in my office, the door is always open and I'm accessible to anyone at any time. You don't have to, sometimes you need to make an appointment just because you need to know I'm there. But if I have an administrator or anyone who just wants to stop by, sometimes they will text me and say, hey, are you available? And I say, come on in, what do you need? That open door policy, because I don't want anyone to think that I won't talk to them. I think it's important, probably about, I think it's been about a week or two. I had a parent that legitimately had some real concerns, and it got word to me that they were highly upset. So I had them contact her and schedule for her to come in and sit down and talk with me. You know, you heard all kind of horror stories, but what it was a mom who was hurt about the way her child was being treated. And that's all it was about. And to listen to her and hear what she was talking about and try to make some understanding of it, and then to follow back up with that principal and those leaders in that building to say, hey, this is what we need to do. We've made a misstep here. We missed this. Let's get on board and let's try to help this parent feel good about where she is and where her student is. And one of the things she said, I really didn't think you would call me. And I thought, well, I always try to reach out, but this felt like you needed to come in person. So that's kind of my personality with that open door policy. Sometimes if people are angry, I honestly will wait about 24 hours or even a little bit longer and then reach out to them so that they can settle a little bit. And when we started working with the PI Innovation Center, one of the pieces was we had to have input from everyone. So in that, it was listening to community advisors, listening to industry advisors, listening to the boots on the ground, listening to the teachers, listening to the students. And it was this whole encompassing, how do we make this happen? Where do we go with this? But who do we need to be listening to get it right? Our industry advisors was probably the most valuable piece we had with this, because what they told us was, what y'all are doing right now in these classrooms, that's not what we need when they get out. So partnering with them and catering the lessons and the curriculum to blend what happens in education with what happens in industry was a very enriching experience, and it changed the way we do business. I can tell you that my experience is almost all education, so for me to have that opportunity to sit with them and work through it was beneficial for me as well. When you talk about throughout the year, advisories are key for me. So I have advisory groups with students, parents, businesses, churches, community partners, my administrative staff, and I'm involved in multiple civic organizations. Those parent advisories, we will say, we'll pitch topics and then let them pitch topics back to us, and we sit there and go, well, how are we doing? What are we doing well? What do we need to improve? And then what are your suggestions? I will also tell you that the impact of businesses with those advisory groups helps us shape the community and shape our student leaders. For me, my most valuable advisory groups are my students, students who drive what we do, and they're exceptionally honest. I can remember sitting in a student advisory group, love my children, and so I had this list of things that I thought was valued and important, and they've stopped me and said, can we talk about lunch? I said, yeah, can we talk about lunch? Well, what it was they wanted the menus posted so that when they're coming in the cafeteria, that they know which line to go through faster. And, you know, I thought they were going to complain about food. I thought they were going to, but that's all they needed was as they're going, because, you know, we've got 30 minutes for lunch. And so they're trying to make those decisions faster and quicker because there are multiple lines that they can go through. And then they started talking about how to prepare food and do things so that it would be more of a grab and go. Just listening to them, the other most valuable thing that I can tell you with my student leadership is they talk to me about curriculum and their curriculum needs, and then I take that back to our team and say, hey, this is what they're missing, this is what they want. We talk a lot about access and what we need to provide, what barriers do we have in place for kids. That's coming from kids. That's all coming from kids. So that helps me guide the work from the district level so that we're meeting the needs of students. When we talk about change, and I just really want to talk about sometimes leaders, we get this narrow focus, and we are moving forward, and we think we're doing the right things, and then there's bumps in the roads, but you just keep on focusing. When I came to my current position, and we started looking at data, and what we found, and I really just want to talk about the necessity and ability to change. We found that our scores were stagnant. We had gaps in literacy that were not acceptable in our subgroups. And so we started looking at that curriculum and saying, you know what, this curriculum is not doing the job we need to do. And if you know anything about education, we are very traditional. We like what we like. And when you tell us we're going to have to switch and change, we're not comfortable with that. So the curriculum that was being used was a holistic approach and a balanced literacy. It did not have a sounds first approach, and the gaps just kept growing. So with pilot programs and initiatives, trainers coming in, building leadership at the building level, building leadership at the district level, we actually did a whole emphasis on early literacy and switched our curriculum mid-year to open court, which is a sounds-based approach. It's very scientific, it's very strategic, and when we did that, I will tell you that my pilot schools did a great job of sending out the message, but we also had to work with the community, so we started a Read 20 approach, and in the Read 20 approach, one of the things that we did was we provided ready classes for our preschoolers. And so we had parent meetings with ready classes. That reading initiative was district-wide. We had family reading nights and all. We partnered with all of our restaurants, and we had family reading nights in all of our restaurants where the parents came. They were dressed in characters. It was just building the excitement about reading. And so when we started building that excitement around early reading initiative, we worked with our hospitals, with United Way, the Dolly Parton. We started reaching out to every organization we could possibly do to push reading. And so we had kids coming everywhere. The restaurants were offering free meals for kids. And then on those family reading nights, we were posting social media, everything about the excitement of reading. So when we started this, the one big thing we did for the community, and I believe you have to initiate excitement when you're starting a change. That change, we did this huge community event where we celebrated reading and talked about the value of reading, and for the community to hear that if you are not hitting proficient levels by the end of third grade, your opportunity to be incarcerated becomes higher, and the opportunity for them to make a living wage becomes lower. That is an impact that hits. We had the sheriff's department delivering books. We had books everywhere. We went to basketball games at the universities, the high schools, the middle schools, and we were handing out books. We had reading events. But the one thing that I will tell you is we started the little libraries, and in the little libraries, every school now has a little library. They are stocked with a partner. They're library books. They come and go, and you can look all across Bradley County, and you can find the little libraries. The one thing, though, that I want you to see what evoke and change means is that you cannot be timid in any way, shape, or form, because you will get criticized. People will say, you know, why are you doing this? Teachers will begin to get resistance. That's why if you don't put the structures in place to support those teachers, you're going to be in trouble. So I want you to now know the impact of those changes, and I'm not sure I can play the video.
And Dr. Cash, we have about 5 more minutes for the presentation.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to show you this, and then I'm going to scoot. But this is the impact of a reading initiative. This is a little girl with so many adverse situations in her life. The first one you see is when she the first day of kindergarten, and the second one you see is her 100th day of kindergarten.
What sound does G make?
I don't know.
What sound does A make?
Nip.
Look at me. What sound does A make?
Nip.
What sound does N make?
See.
What sound does Y make?
Nip.
What sound does S make?
Ding.
Look at me. Look at me. Eliza, look at me. What sound does D make? What sound does I make?
Me.
Eliza, look at your teacher. Look at Miss McElhaney. Look at me. What sound does U make?
You.
What sound does O make? What sound does J make?
Me.
What sound does C make? What sound does P make?
And this is her 100th day.
Kim and Sam can look at a plan. We can run with a wind. Kim and Sam can win. We can run this up. Look at Kim and Sam. Kim and Sam.
Oh, try that one again.
Kim can go fast with Sam. Go fast.
So I wanted to share that with you to let you know that there is no way that you can tell me that little girl did not have impact on the change in initiative with reading. I'm going to skip a little bit and talk to you about developing community support. And with the community support with parents, those go back to the advisory. The wisdom to change comes from reading and being in professional memberships, but really reading your community and the needs of your community. I attend workshops and I attend the trainings that the teachers are actually involved in so that I'm a boots on the ground understanding what's happening. When you're talking about fostering the community, in those community events, it's extremely important to be present, to have knowledge and to move on. That community support comes from being visible in the community, attending meetings, going to county commission meetings, going to Rotary meetings, attending clubs and being a part of boards that have a valued interest in that. So those community engagement strategies are everything from sending out videos and surveys, sharing the strategic plan, being in meetings where you are the presenter and you're presenting the focus of the district. When you talk about effectively communicating, there's where I pretty much am everywhere. Speaking where I can speak, delivering the message, delivering the energy, making sure they understand we are about children. If there's a grant out there, we're going for the grant because it helps our kids. So we use tax letters. The school system puts a letter in every tax notice that highlights everything that's happening in our schools and lets them know how we're spending their tax money and where we're going. We do radio, social media. Billboards have been very successful for us, virtual, and we send out a lot of short videos. I've talked to you about that expertise in the elementary, secondary curriculum. I am very proud to say that I work with leaders who help me with that. That is not done on my own, but I'm very embedded in what happens with curriculum in the schools. In evaluating, and you're looking at developing and implementing or evaluating, one of the things that I want to tell you is I try to ignite the schools, and so they come in and they're basing everything on the district initiatives, but they're developing their own goals. We evaluate their goals, and we start moving and trying to be sure that we're putting in place everything we can for students. We have running clubs, archery, our CTEs are expanding. The biggest thing we did that I think really impacts kids right now is that K-12 leadership initiative. At every school level, we have a leadership program that moves people through that leadership process. Just looking at your diverse staff and high morale, I think that is the shared leadership process. You can read that. It's book studies. It's everything that you can to fulfill those. But Knox County is sitting right on the verge of moving into building higher leadership and higher relationships so that we can impact students. One of my best events that I did was a poverty simulation with the United Way to embed my leaders in what is real poverty and to be sure our parent advisory groups were in there. Working with the board, and I'm going to skip SMART goals and go, that's a planning process. Working with the board is where I think that is the key. And when I work with boards, I believe in an annual board retreat where we have a robust discussion and implementation about where do we need to go, what are your interests, what are my interests, where are we as a district. It builds camaraderie, it builds alignment. I think you have to have input in the budget. What are your major pieces that you want to see if we can support? Policy discussions. My job is to review those policies along with board members to see how they impact us and make sure we understand them. I text message frequently, although you can't respond to me as a group, but I text message to let you know, hey, we have fire trucks at this spot right now. I wanted to let you know that there's really nothing going on, but you need to know because you're going to get calls. Why is there a fire truck here? Or I had a student fall on the playground. We are transporting them. You need to know that. I try my very best to keep you updated with emails and newsletters, making sure you're aware of social events so you can attend. Attending conferences together is key because you're hearing the same thing I'm hearing. And then we have conversations about, well, what did we hear at that conference that we want to either implement in our school system or try to do better? I think it's important for you to be recognized at events. If you're there, I want to be sure the principal or anybody recognizes you and says we want to recognize our board members, because part of my job is to lift you up and let people know that you care about those kids, you care about their schools, you care about their communities. Finding ways to showcase board support. I will always, if I'm out and I am doing something, I always say, this came from the board is in full support of this. I want you to know what they're talking about and while they're in it. It's a team approach. It's not you by yourself, you're with me. My job is to help you understand and know and be able to go out in the public and speak, and then my job in turn with that is to tell people what you do. Those are all I've talked about: leadership, CTE certifications, reading success, different social and socioeconomic areas in the community. You need to look at every adverse situation and address it. It's important for you to be a part of all those local chambers, local leaders, monthly meetings, economic development, working with your universities and colleges, and representations to work together. So with that, I just want to say that it is my privilege and my honor to be in front of you today and having the opportunity just to talk to you about the value and importance of education and your role and my role in education. I believe that the students and the teachers in Knox County deserve the best. And I think when we cast that vision that we're moving forward and we will be the best, and I have people with me who are taking that vision out and shaping who we are and what we do, then you've got a whole different ballgame. All of a sudden people are paying attention. What's happening in Knox County? Where did this come from? You have community leaders talking about it. Will there be bumps in the road? There are always bumps in the road. But you hit them head on, you get them out there, and you say, this is what happened, but we're on top of this. We're working together to manage this and put it forward. So I leave you with that, saying just thank you. It's a privilege to be here. I got up this morning and walked 2 miles looking at the downtown area. It's a great place to be, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of this process. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. And it was important for us to be able to let you demonstrate the work that you've been doing. So thank you for putting that presentation together, very
You're
thorough
welcome.
presentation, and giving us all that good insight. Feel good to move forward, board? All right, so we do have 11 questions that we will ask you, and again, share as much as you'll like because we will not have follow-up questions, and we will start off with you, Board Member Owen.
Thank you. I'm Jennifer Owen from the 2nd District. Could you tell us about your ability to build, inspire, and develop your leadership team to perform at the highest level? And also discuss your plan for building and supporting that leadership team in Knox County Schools.
So you have to have a strong team around you, but you also have to recognize and build that team. So when I start building teams, we are having weekly meetings or impromptu meetings to talk about what are our strengths, what are our areas for growth, and then how do we cast this vision. We go through a tremendous amount of leadership training so that we are making decisions and looking at change so that we know, is it a first order change, which is just a little bit out of the norm, or is it a second order change that we're working with, which is going to be a break from the norms, and looking at them and saying, how do I help you? And then how do we help each other? Everybody has a strength, and one of the things that I briefly spoke to the executive team yesterday was they have history with Knox County. I do not have history with Knox County, so to depend on them to inform me of historical things in the past and growing. Just for instance, I have people around me now. Creativity is not my strength. I'm very strategic. So I look for those people, and then once I've handed it to you, my expectation is to build you up so that you can execute what you need to execute. If I'm not supporting you and building you, or if I'm trying to micromanage you, then I'm not the leader that I need to be. So we do McCrell leadership is one of my firm beliefs because it walks you through change and how to move people. I do leadership training with them. I do book studies with them. We talk about what's going on in the schools, and in that sense, we're feeding them over and over and over again. If you don't feed them and work with them, they get burned out. So I want them to be excited about the work and work side by side with them. I also would expect the leadership team to push back. You don't want yes people around you all the time, because if you've got yes people around you, all you get is a stagnation, and that's not what you want. So I want them to say, hey, that won't work. And then I'm going to push back and say, okay, if this doesn't work, what are some other ideas that we can move forward with this?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. I'm Daniel Watson. I'm on Board of Education District 3. And my question's around, please discuss specific examples of building and maintaining high morale among employees. How will you use your experience as the superintendent to do that?
First, morale is something that you always want to look at. And so I'll start by saying you need to celebrate. You need to celebrate every win. There are a lot of things that happen that we think are small, and they just kind of pass us by, but every win is a strong win, so we encourage celebrations. A couple of years ago in Bradley County, our scores were exceptionally high. That's only related to teachers. And so we did a big event where the teachers came in, and we had a reception for them and luncheons for them. So I think you celebrate. I also think that you recognize at the building level that they have to have some flexibility, that you can't be so rigid that you just expect the perfect situation every time you walk in, because in a school system it changes very quickly. So recognizing that one day you may go in and a teacher not be on top of her game, that's okay, and we just celebrate for the effort of being in there. With morale, I think social media is a powerful tool for morale, celebrating and putting that out there of your teachers' successes and of the building successes. Billboards are fabulous. Our Teachers of the Year in Knox County should be all over this community. Billboards, social media, everywhere we put, celebrating their work. I think you also have to recognize, though, when they're tired, and put messages out there. I send personal messages to the whole district staff, just thanking them for the work that they do and explaining that I understand we've hit a rough spot. When we were going through the COVID and we had 2 weeks of everybody covering everybody's classes, everybody trying to make it work, that they needed to be pat on the back. Thank you for the extra work. We are so appreciative. And believe it or not, a lot of times with teachers, they just want to hear that you care and that you appreciate what they're doing, and keeping that morale up. That's part of it, is recognizing them. Often I will just go to the schools and spend time in the classrooms telling them how proud I am of them. But you also have to celebrate your leaders. It's not just your teachers, it's your administrators. That's a hard job. It's a really hard job. So to celebrate them and to pour it into them and feed them is important as well.
Thank you. I'm Virginia Babb of District 4, and my question is, detail strategies in your experience that significantly enhance your ability to build relationships with diverse student populations and multicultural groups within your community.
And some people may not believe this is as important as I do, but I think showing up at student events and interacting with the students, which when you're in those events, are important. They begin to see you as approachable. And then when they see you at their events and then you're in their schools, those students, no matter what background, they need to feel comfortable talking to me and coming up to me. One of the pieces that I know that I have to continue to do is work with community members on how to approach people of diversity, people with different backgrounds, different religions. That's always an education piece. Know who's in front of you. Understand where they come from. My student advisory groups, I always ask for them to be very diverse. I don't always want your best and your brightest. I want the kids that struggle. I want the kids that may have gotten in trouble. I will tell you that in the school system I'm in now, we do have an alternative school, and part of it is the restorative practices, and I will go to that alternative school and sit and talk with those students. Let's talk about how's it going? How do you think you ended up here? What can we do to help? And a lot of times it's things in their background and in their life that they don't quite know how to handle. And so we have to have those open communications. I firmly believe, talking to me personally, meeting with adults of different backgrounds is important, because if I'm meeting with those adults, they can give me insights into those communities that I might not have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Christy, District 9. Tell us about a time when you failed. How did you deal with it, and how did you grow from it? What would you do differently knowing what you know now?
Well, one that just popped in my head, and I'm usually not reactionary. Most of the time I'm very specific about what I do and how I handle things and where I was. Well, COVID, as you know and I know, was just a crazy time. So typically if I'm going to dismiss school earlier, I'm going to cancel school. I try to do it late afternoon, 3:45, 4:45, trying to give parents time to get home, or if I know we're going to close, I'll do it a couple of days so parents have to find childcare. Well, there was a day, and actually I think it was last year, teachers were dropping like flies. I mean, it was just not a good thing, and I'd never closed the district. We would close school by school, but I didn't close the district. Well, I mean, I had one phone call from a principal, second phone call, third phone call, fourth phone call, and I said, I gotta close schools. And going against what I normally do, I got the principals online and I said, hey guys, I'm gonna announce at 1:45 that we are not gonna be in session tomorrow. And so we just did it, and it was unfortunately right before Christmas break. And sent the message out. Unfortunately, they got it when they were in car rider line. And the blowback from the principals and the teachers was, that was too fast, we didn't have time, we didn't know what we were doing. Angry fathers who said, now I have to find childcare. And so that break in the norm was a failure on my part. And I decided at that one time that I would, before I did that quick reactive response, that I would sit back, listen to my principals, because honestly, some of my principals were saying, can you wait till after school is over? And in my head, I was like, no, because the more time parents have to prepare for childcare and extra, well, it didn't work like that. As a matter of fact, one teacher cried for 3 days because she didn't get to have the Christmas party with her students. None of that played into my decision. My decision was based on I'm not going to have enough teachers to run the schools, so I got to get. That was the failure that I promised myself. Don't ever do that again. Don't think because you're getting all this hot information, take a little time, sit back, and make sure you're getting information from other people other than the ones that are panicking calling you. You get panic calls all the time, and if you continue to be that reactionary leader, you'll make mistake after mistake after mistake. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes there are emergencies, and you just have to handle the emergency. It was not an emergency. It was me feeling the pressure of everything's falling apart. And so I will never do that again.
Thank you. Evans C. Satterfield, District 1. What is the single most difficult aspect in developing a school district budget other than funding level challenges? What's been your direct experience with this difficulty?
First off, most budgets, school budget, about anywhere from 83 to 85% of your budget is going to be personnel. And so once you look at your personnel and you start analyzing what do I have left, you have to take into account, we have charges that are coming with us. Your insurance most likely is going to go up, so that's another chunk of your budget. Your Social Security, all your FICA, everything, you've got to round all that in. And then you get a list of needs from all of the schools. The most difficult thing is I've got X amount of money. What are the most critical things that I need to accomplish that may not be equitable across the district? So, for instance, one year I had a roof that there was no other option. It had to be fixed. I mean, the maintenance guys would not go on the roof any longer because it was dangerous. Well, that was a huge chunk of my funding. That is not something you actually see, or there were beams that were broken. Making those critical decisions over some things that you might want is really hard. Everybody wants everything. And so when you have to tell them you just don't have the budget or the money, it hurts. But I do think when you start prioritizing the needs, the first need is safety. Are we doing the right things for safety? The second thing you look at, are we doing the right things for maintaining those buildings? And so we drafted a 5-year plan for roofing, paving, all of those pieces. One of the best decisions, but the hardest decisions I think that we ever made was purchasing equipment for our maintenance department so that they could do the material in-house instead of always outsourcing or bidding. When we bought that equipment, it was a huge expense, but over the 5-year span that we've done that, it has saved the districts hundreds of thousands of dollars because now we do it in-house instead of bidding it. So if you had to ask me one thing, it would be telling principals, I know you want to renovate that lab, but I can't renovate that lab this year. And this was a real incident. It was at a middle school. The lab needed renovating. There was no doubt. But I've got a roof falling in, so I've got to take care of that roof before I renovate this lab. The lab wasn't uninhabitable. It wasn't that they couldn't teach in it. It just needed a renovation. So I would probably say that was tough because, those kids deserve better than that. And you're just like, they really do, but the roof's falling in. So I guess that's what I would say is prioritizing.
Thank you. Susan Horn, District 5. Another budget question. Discuss your process for prioritizing and ensuring the district's budget aligns to its mission, vision, and strategic plan.
So when you start working with a budget, the first thing you do is you look at your priorities that should have already been set by the board. The board, I bring the priorities to the board. The board has input on those priorities, and then we list them. What are we going to take care of first, second, third? There may be some emergency priorities that emerge. So you look at your strategic plan, and part of that is going to be your capital outlay. And in the capital outlay, it is things that need repaired or things that you're going extra and beyond. So our process is the first round, we get budget input from the board. What are your goals? What are you looking for? What do you need? Our second round is every supervisor comes in and they're presenting their budgets. What do we have to have, but what's your wish list? We always have a wish list. So we work with them, and then the principals actually come in, actually they email it to me now, and they are doing everything from personnel needs, building needs. They're listing all of their needs on that, and then they also have a wish list. So once we've gotten that input from the board, from the supervisors, and from the principals, I then talk to my county commission. Are there any extra funds? Are there anything you can help me with? And so we move through those priorities. Then we actually rank them, and we try our very best to be sure that every school gets something on their list. That is a goal. Something on your list needs to be taken care of. But the process is the same. It is working with your finance department, working with those categories that you have, knowing that the first place you take care of are salaries and benefits. All of those pieces have to be taken care of first. And then you are looking at, okay, we have textbooks to purchase. So you have categories that have to be filled. There's no way you can get out of that. And then you start looking at those intentional things of where do you need to put your money.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I do beg a lot too when I'm looking at budgets.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Cash. Betsy Henderson, District 6. Please explain your experience in helping the community understand the needs and realities of your school system, or discuss when you have been a public champion for your school or district. Discuss your experience in providing the community with difficult information about your district.
In particular, I think that I am the spokesperson and the face for the district. So when you are trying to get movement, the biggest expense for a district is, of course, a new building. So we had a school that honestly needed, well, we did it, so I'll go ahead and it needed to be gone. And so when I started working on the building phase of that, because we desperately needed a new building for those students to be in. It was very public. It was me not only going to the county commission, but speaking every day to community members about how important it was for kids to have a safe environment, a clean environment. It was a big event with some commissioners saying, we're not going to raise taxes just to give you a building. We're not going to do this. But with the board's help and with community looking at, I sent pictures. I had commissioners come out and look at where we really were. I'm not asking because I don't need it. I really need it. Over and over again, posting pictures as the building was going up, offering tours. So what I did was I got commitment from my commissioners with funding. I got that commitment first. That took a long time. And then we started from the board's prospect, okay, there are extra things that have to go in that building. How are we going to fund that? So we started looking at our fund balance. That was, you hear everything, from community members saying things like, well, I went to school there and it was fine for me. You hear all of that and you want to say, you know what, that was about 45 years ago. And come look at it. And my firm belief is if you can get someone physically in a building that you're trying to do something with, their mind starts to change. It's not just about talk. It's like, come let me take you through this. And then when the new building starts going up, sharing that pride, publicly saying, I'm so proud of my county commissioners for supporting this. I'm so proud of my school board for supporting this. We're doing what's in the best interest of kids and teachers. The biggest win I had with that was the teachers. The teachers were in on the planning of the building, of what their classrooms needed to look like, but that was a win. But you do, every time you want to do something that costs a lot of money, it was, well, I went there, I did this, and you have to say, we are so proud of that, but come look at it now.
Good morning, and I'm Patty Bounds, and I'm District 7. How do you direct your staff to implement a decision made by the school board or other governing body if you and your staff disagree with that decision?
So one of the things that I will tell you that I believe is important is if we are making, and it is me with the board, it's not the board by itself. If we're having to make a decision that we know is not going to be popular with my staff, we sit, we discuss, we talk about, and you can complain in my circle, you can whine in my circle, but once we leave this circle, we are all on board. There should never be a voice that says, from my office, never a voice that says, well, I don't think they should have done that. I think the voice should be, we are so proud that our board had to take a hard stance on this, and we are 100% behind them. That's the message. I always say in my office or in our group, we can hash everything out. But once we leave, we're on the same page. And if I find people that are not doing that, I bring them in, and I have some pretty hard conversations with them. Because if we don't act as one and support each other, we'll never move forward. If you've got inconsistencies with messaging and the central office is the one that's causing the hardship, that's on me. But I have never had a group of leaders who, once they had every piece of information, and that is key, knowing the why. Why did we have to make that decision? Why is this happening? And it's not, we're not doing anything to you. There's a why behind it. If you can get the why out there and they understand the purpose behind the decision, it wasn't we wanted to do it, we had to do it, and this is why. It changes the narrative. And so that's what we do. But I will tell you, I expect all of my leaders from the building level all the way to central office to be on board with what the board decisions are made. But then that is making sure they have the information to know and understand.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Cash, Michael Millen, District 8. My question indirectly, I guess, relates to Ms. Henderson's question and your answer, which I thought was very good.
Thank you. I don't remember what I said, so.
Okay, let me read the question, then I want to add this to something that relates to it. Oh, thank you, Ms. Bailey. Discuss your expectations in working with the school board to advance the mission and your plan for building relationships and sharing information with the school board, county commission, and the county mayor. Now, to that, I would also like to know your approach for asking the county commission and the mayor, since they're the funding bodies, if there needs to be, in your opinion, a tax increase, what is your approach and how would you handle it?
Could you read the first part of the question for me?
Discuss your expectations in working with the board to advance our shared mission and your plan for building relationships and sharing information with the board, the commission, and the county mayor.
Thank you. As I said before, with the school board, it is a partnership with me and the school board. So I believe that we have to go on retreats together. We have to go on collaborative messaging together. In the sense that the voice that we put out there is one voice. It doesn't mean that we don't disagree with some things, but when we are going to conventions together and we're hearing messaging and we're seeing what is out there, then we have the opportunity to discuss and grow together. I think that it is very important with me personally for each of you to have a personal relationship with me so that you can pick up the phone and call me and talk to me and feel that I am available at any time, and I am. It's very rarely when I will not answer your call, and if I am in a situation where I can't, I will tell you, I'm in a meeting right now, I'll call you back as soon as I can, because a lot of time that happens with you is that you'll hear things before I do, and I would expect you to call me and say, I want to give you a heads up about this so that I can begin to address it and take care of it. If it is anything happening in the district, you would have hired me to run the school system. I don't expect you and do not want you to run the school system. I want you to focus on policy and support and budget and information. But when you know people that I don't know, please tell them that you will talk to me and I will get back with them, or I'll give you the messaging where you can get back with them. So in that sense, this relationship is ongoing, and it morphs and it changes, but it's ongoing. I believe that we go to events together if there is something that is in the community. I believe your presence is necessary. I believe my presence is necessary. And it's not that we're just supporting the community, but we're operating as a full board. And sometimes some of you can go. Sometimes, most of the time, I do go. When I'm working with funding bodies or government entities, I operate the same way. I'm an open book. I talk to them frequently. I call my commissioners. I call my legislatures. They have my number. And one of the things with them when you talk about funding, it's, hey, I want to talk to you about some needs in the school. So they're getting a list of needs and opportunities for them to support long before I'm ready to ask for funding. I also believe it's important for this board and for me to take care of things in-house if we can take care of them in-house without always asking for money. Writing grants, well, some county commissioners do not like grants, I understand that, but there are so many grants out there that can support our school system that's another way to bring money in that is not on the commission. It's this district, and when you write a grant, it launches an excitement that you've never seen before, because either my staff or those school leaders, they have written a grant for something that is purposeful for them. So it's not me saying, hey, write this grant, although I will tell you, I sometimes slide, hey, are y'all interested in this grant? You want to go for this grant? Most of the time, they're searching for them at that need. So when you talk about the commission, the mayor's office, both mayor's offices, it's an ongoing conversation. They should never be surprised about anything this board is asking for. When you will know before they know what I think the needs are, but my job is to communicate back and forth with them. I attend the county commission meetings. I will attend the city board meetings because they need to see me as an integral part of the process. You ask about raising taxes. That's not in my purview in any way, shape, or form. My job is to bring to them the needs of this district, and that's what they do. I bring a budget to them that will have a list of needs. It's their job to see if they can fund it.
Thank you.
So given the learning loss resulting from the pandemic, detail curricula or instructional improvements that have occurred because of your leadership, and discuss your evidence to demonstrate improvement.
Okay. So one of the, first off, we did not shut down. We continued to go to school. Some of it was virtual, and then it was all in-house. Even though we were in school, there was a loss in learning, and it was very evident when we did our benchmarks. What we did as a staff and leadership is we went through all of the data and all of the standards to find out what the clusters of standards were that were missing. And so when we started summer school, we focused on those standards for those students for all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade. We were looking at what standards were missing. When we came back to school, we again started aligning from the missed schools. So from March, April, May, when we didn't go to school at all, we started looking at what standards did not get taught because we simply weren't in school. And then so we did backward design, and we started embedding those standards in the lessons that we knew. We didn't want to go backwards, we wanted to go forward. So we embedded those standards in the lessons and the pacing guides with our teachers, and our teachers actually did the work with my district leaders to figure out what had to change in those pacing guides and what we had to embed in different areas. So even though they weren't taught those standards, they were embedded because we needed to be sure we did not leave holes in the learning. We also started high-powered interventions based on the needs of the kids. We already have, of course, interventions in place, but these were specifically designed to the needs for the learning loss, and it was heavily accelerated. After school tutoring, before school tutoring, anything that we could do. We had online tutoring, online hotlines for homework help, sending powerful messages about, it's important for your students to be in school. We appreciate you being in school. And so trying to keep that attendance level up was important for us, so we did focus on that. But I would say probably the most powerful thing was going back and embedding those standards and to try to keep moving forward. The results we saw were that when we benchmarked again, those gaps were closing. The standards that we focused on that they had missed, for the most part, those standards had been moving into mastery. And that's still where we are. We still have kids that are behind, but we at least began to close that gap of that learning loss. If you go specifically into the elementary schools, you will see that we have RTI, but we also have workshop. And in workshop, we have broken it down to what are the skills that the students need. And so they are specifically targeting the skills. And we also streamlined the material that we were using so that we weren't haphazardly doing anything. It was very specific and purposeful of what the needs were. Training our paraprofessionals, and having people in the building to support, that was important for all of us. So we did have to add some personnel in some areas, some schools, and that was ESSER money that was used for that. We will obviously try to see if there is a way that we can continue that support, but when we started seeing the growth, I would say right now, if you walk into the schools, you are seeing business as normal. With teachers accelerating the learning, and that's pretty powerful to see, but it's because of the intentionality of closing the gap.
All right, thank you. Last question I have, and you've hit on it previously, but discuss how you have developed, implemented, and or evaluated early literacy programs, and describe how these programs improve the educational achievement of students.
With the literacy push that we had, the first thing we did to say, we just knew something was wrong. We weren't getting the results on benchmarks or 10 Ready that we knew because teachers were working hard and students were working hard, but we weren't getting the results. So that was the deep dive into it. So we read a book, it's called Catch-Up Growth, and it talked about how to accelerate kids and what you needed to do. So we did book studies on catch-up growth. We examined the curriculum, and then we started saying this is not the curriculum we need to use right now. It's too global. It's not specific enough. So we started searching for the right curriculum. We wanted a sounds first curriculum, and this was before this was across Tennessee. And so as we started implementing those and being rigorous, our teachers were involved. We had pilot programs with the program. We chose Open Court for its rigor, but also for its intentionality and routines that were in the lesson. So you can walk in a classroom. You'll see variations because teachers have, teaching is an art, so they put their spin on it. But you will see every kid responding to the same cues. You will see every kid knowing and understanding, because what we wanted as a team and as a staff, that if a student goes from kindergarten to first to second, they are building on the same routines. So if everything is different every year, you don't get consistency and you don't have a viable curriculum. So our intent was a viable, reliable curriculum in every classroom across the board. Students transfer, so it breaks my heart to think a kid can be at one school in our district and they're using one thing and they move to another one and they're lost because they don't know the routines, they don't know the curriculum, because that was part of the purpose. The results we saw when we changed the curriculum, and it was tough. It was not easy. I would probably say I was probably called more names during that time than normal. How long has it been since she's been in the classroom, all the typical pieces, but we were doing what was right for kids. And then we found champions in our teacher who said, look what I'm seeing. Just like the video you saw of that little girl, they started saying, this is unbelievable. I never thought this kid could make these kind of gains. So through your benchmark testing, we saw gains, and they were huge gains. They weren't small gains, they were huge gains in literacy, in sounds, in recognizing all the literacy pieces. They just started to zoom. That was the buy-in. First it was, this is all new to, it was a second order change. That was all new to them, but once we saw that it works, we are seeing those gains. We are seeing it hit through our benchmarks. And then when we had second grade test scores, you see 70% of those kids on target or mastery. You hit third grade and you are all of a sudden seeing a huge jump. And it's kids that you would not expect to have the jump. That's when you know you've done the right thing.
Awesome, thank you. So that concludes our questions. Do you want to provide a closing?
I will,
Okay.
thank you. I'll be brief, I promise. The only thing that you need to, that I want to leave you with is that my heart is for kids, and it's for all kids. I will tell you, when I left one of the schools yesterday, I knew instantly why I was here. That kids need leadership that trusts and believe in them. And I told a friend of mine this morning, and I said, and I don't mind telling you, when I left Austin East, I knew I'm there for the kids. So no matter what anybody believes or criticizes or anything, it is my heart that if you are doing what is right for kids and you're willing to tackle and break from tradition, then you're going to do the right thing. I am not a status quo person. So if you're looking for status quo, I'm not the person. I believe that change done in the right way is impactful. I believe that bringing everybody on board with you is the only way to get it done. I have high expectations for everybody, high expectations for my central office staff, high expectations for myself. And I believe that we together can move this district in ways that we don't even understand right now. And but I do want to tell you, I'm very passionate about what we do in education, and I believe it takes everybody. So no longer can we push people away that want to help us. We have to embrace it. We have to find what their strengths are, and we have to embrace it and move forward. But we also have to stand firm when people are pushing us in a direction that we know we don't need to go. The political pressures are high, and that's when you have to stand up and say, that's not best for kids, and I appreciate everything you're saying and you're doing. Would you listen to me, and would you come into my schools? Once they can make that move, you'll have heart for kids. But we have all these peripheral things out there that you as a board have to manage, that I have to manage, but my integrity will not allow me to budge from what is right for kids. I also am honest to a fault maybe, but I believe that you tell the truth, and you tell the truth all the time. And you don't cover things up. You put it out there and say, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, but we're going to take care of this. I love kids. I love education. I love teachers. Principals are amazing people. And together we can do a great job. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, for spending 2 days here in Knox County. We really appreciate it. Understand how much time you gave to us, and so that does not go unnoticed. So thank you so much.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Cash.
And I put blessings on all of y'all. You'll have a hard decision to make. Thank you.
Board members, we have a break, but I also would, my recommendation, do what you want, but my recommendation is to maybe debrief your thoughts from this interview so that you can be prepared for when we have discussion on the 22nd, and that what just happened now doesn't leave you and you have to remember. So take some times, maybe debrief your notes, the kind of strengths and weaknesses from your perspective, to where we can have conversation and robust conversation on the 22nd.
I have a question. I know we had the community lunch yesterday, and then we had the community forum last night, and we asked people to fill out sheets. Are we going to get that feedback, and how is that happening?
Yes, that's a great question, because I thought about that today. So I am going to, the committee might have a conversation. Is that okay, Gary? Okay, I don't know. We have a conversation about how we would like board members to access, even if it was just the maybe contacting the people on your own who attended, because it was a small group, and so maybe who you have good relationships with, contact those people to get input, but the committee will talk and make the recommendation.
I think I'm talking more about the forms, like
Oh,
at
the
the lunch
forms that-
yesterday, there was actually a form that
okay.
people could fill out, and then last night there was a form, and I don't know how many actually got turned back in, but I didn't know, and
Yeah,
this might
so
be a Jill
let me
Aikens
give you
question.
some more information after,
That,
when we
that's
come
fine.
back.
I just think it would be good before we get to Tuesday to know if we're gonna get provided that and how. Thank you.
I'll have that answer today.
Thank you.
Chair, what time we need to be back?
When are we starting back? Lunch at 12:40? Okay. So we've got a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you again, Dr. Cash.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you so much.